Hello and welcome to the Urban Dharma NC podcast. This is part 9 of a series in which Dorje Lopon Dr. Hanlai teaches about the 5 Buddha families, a tantric organizing principle for understanding our own original wakefulness. Getting to know the 5 Buddha families can allow us a better understanding and recognition of the nuances and qualities of our own awakened nature, like a colorless light when refracted. Urban Dharma is a Buddhist temple in the heart of Asheville, North Carolina. We are supported by your generosity and by our online store, TibetanSpirit.com. To learn more about us, come visit our temple in person or look us up online at udharmanc.com. Thanks for listening.
So let me read a little bit more, this one section from this book, and then we'll do a short practice. So from this book again, it says, the dominance of the karmic... So here, Rinpoche is talking about like sort of karmic propensities from previous lifetimes. So this is kind of like, again, the 5 elements, the 5 Buddha families. There's so much you can focus on here. So in a way, this is a real brief introduction, an overview of how this works. So each time you receive more Vajrayana teachings, you can easily put it into this, once you get the basic rubric down, you can map it out. So in empowerments, they talk about the 5 Buddha families coming to do the empowerment. It's not the Lama, it's not the human person that is empowering you. It doesn't work like that. Now, of course, having someone who has experienced empowerment him or herself, then, they are in a better position to kind of, affect your receiving of empowerment. But nonetheless, at the end, we say that it's the 5 Buddha families that comes to do the empowerment. So the more kind of background, understanding, information, knowledge that you have about this, then the richer your experience of these. Because they are not, in a way, they are methods, right? So if you don't clue into it, then you don't get much out of these ritual practices. You get something out of it. If you are if your basic constitution is very devotional, then you get more out of it. But if your basic constitution is not, and even if your basic constitution is more devotional, you're not getting the full meaning of it if you don't understand some of these more basic points that are being made about the 5 Buddha families. So anyways, here, the dominance of the karmic potentials of different elements causes the dominance of corresponding afflictive emotions. Here, the translator, actually, I think Rinpoche wrote it in English. He uses the word passions. But here, passion is not specifically like desire. It's like klesha, what we normally translate as afflictive emotions. For example, ordinary human beings who tended predominantly towards the earth element in previous lives have an earthy temperament connected with the klesha of ignorance, whose characteristic is heaviness, solidity, and immobility. Those who tended predominantly towards the water element have a fluid temperament connected with the passion of desire, whose characteristic is following after and ever-changing. Characteristic is following after and ever-changing. Those who tended predominantly towards the fire element have a fiery temperament connected to the klesha of anger, whose characteristic is burning and annihilating violence, or have a simmering temperament connected to the klesha of pride, whose characteristic is unreceptive one-sidedness. Those who tended predominantly towards the air element have an airy temperament connected to the klesha of jealousy, whose characteristic is rejecting through clinging and grasping. Those who tended predominantly towards the space element have an unfocused temperament connected with the klesha of ignorance, whose characteristic is downness, which is basic, all-pervasive, and untouchable. Ignorance, downness, and spaciousness, very closely related. You could be spacious in a Buddha way. You could also space out. Yeah. You could be, immovable, right, in the Buddha way, right, and firm, right, in your resolve. Right? Or you could also, in a confused way, is anger, that kind of bulldozing, also firm. Yeah, so within the context of here, right, our experience of the five elements are a combination of pure and impure, and varying degrees all in between. And so through all that, interaction, we have all the diversities of temperaments. Here, okay, this next one gives some examples of kind of more subtle ways of understanding the elements. People with good karma who wish to attain enlightenment can use their subtle qualities naturally and increase their inherent purity until they no longer need to depend on gross substance and karma. And karma and the kind of not that the principle of karma doesn't work, but karma in the sense of thinking about, should I do this or should I not do this? And it says that you can go on a more subtle level so that you don't have to rely on kind of constantly thinking about the gross level and the gross level of should I do, should I not do. And so he's not saying that, being clear about what you should do and not do is not important. He says there's a subtle level of practicing this. By recognizing the subtle elements inherent in the gross elements, we're able to act with skillful means. For example, when people smile, their upward turned mouths are gross external expressions of the more subtle positive happiness within. When people glare, their wrinkled foreheads are a gross external expression of the more subtle negative anger or turbulence within. Sometimes the subtle elements of smiling are not positive. Even though the gross element mouth is turned upwards, and the subtle element behind the smile is negative, like the lure of a fisherman who tantalizes the fish with delicious bait in order to kill it. Sometimes the subtle elements of glaring are not negative. Behind some thorns, beautiful soft flowers grow. So we must be intelligent about discerning the quality of what is invisible and gain confidence about how to use negative and positive subtle elements. What is visible to a sublime being is invisible to an ordinary person. Just as what is visible to some intelligent ordinary person is invisible to short-sighted ordinary people. Intelligent people can foresee the future through deduction, while the future is totally obscure to short-sighted ordinary people. In the same way, because it is invisible to them, Many people conclude that Dharma is superstition. They do not recognize that they can only penetrate the gross elements and communicate with the subtle elements by relying on the pure secret essence of the elements. That's the Vajrayana level of working with things. The pure secret elements. They do not recognize that they can only penetrate the gross elements and communicate with the subtle elements by relying on the pure secret essence of the elements. Through this reliance, as in relying on the pure secret essence, superior beings never exhaust their pure secret natural energy and wisdom confidence. The more they use space, which contains all the other elements inherently, the more their gross elements become subtle and light. Ultimately, when they no longer believe in finding any qualities in gross substance, they are said to be enlightened. Cannot be improved. Good practitioners can purify their gross internal and external earth elements. When they do this, the internal earth elements of the gross nerve channels and veins become lighter and lighter, purer and purer, and as they become insubstantial, indestructible, and luminous, the distinction between the conceptions of external and internal earth elements diminishes until they have become purified into the same substancelessness like essence. Padmasambhava attained this state. Because it has an indestructible Vajra nature and cannot be penetrated by any circumstances, according to the Vajrayana system, this is called the Vajra wisdom body.
Is that the same as the rainbow body?
Yeah. Rainbow body is sometimes a kind of a metaphor, but then there's also quite, literally the physical body.
Handprint of Padmasambhava.
Oh, physical body kind of shrinking.
Yeah.
After death. People becoming a third of the size of when they pass away within a few hours.
Oh. Does rainbow body only happen at death, or is that happen sometimes? Is that like a?
It's the dissolution of the physical body. Sorry?
Oh, is it like the last phase before you wouldn't have rainbow body and then be back in the body again?
Yeah.
It's more like after you're ready to leave this this play or the show.
Right.
Yeah, the show.
The show.
So now, a little bit of practice. On page 30 of the recitations book, in the recitations book, here is the famous 7-line prayer of Guru Rinpoche. Yeah, so it ends with this 7 syllables, Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Then usually, when people chant the 7-line prayer, they follow that with the repeating of Guru Rinpoche's or Padmasambhava's mantra. So Padmasambhava's mantra has a few more syllables. Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Pema Siddhi Hum. Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. 7 syllables. It's because these lines all have 7 syllables to it. And so in the Tibetan on page 29, if you look at transliteration, Hung Ujin Yujin Nutang Sang Pema Gesa Tongbola, Yasen Chuging Nadrumni, Pema Jung Neshishuda, Kodo Kando Mampuko, Keki Jesu Daduki, Jinjilo Ji Shekshuso, Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. So then, following that, Guru Rinpoche's basic mantra is often recited, which we didn't print it here. And that mantra is Om Ahong Vajra Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Om Ahum Vajra Guru. So Vajra Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. You see how here Guru Pema Siddhi Hum at the bottom? You see that? Guru Pema Siddhi Hum.
See. Yes.
That last line? Yeah, so the full mantra is Om Ahum Vajra or Bajra Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Om Ahum Vajra Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Sometimes pronounced as Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Yeah. Om Ahum Vajra Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Yeah. So, here is a good example of the 5 Buddha families. Om Ahum first. Om Ahum are the syllables of the enlightened body, speech, and mind. The 3 dimensions of our ordinary samsaric being is the physical dimension, the verbal dimension, and the mental emotional dimension. So those are the 3 dimensions. When those 3 dimensions are utterly, completely purified, or when their basic nature is realized, recognized, then they become the enlightened body, speech, and mind. And so Om Ahum is the enlightened body, speech, and mind. And it says that it invokes the enlightened body, speech, and mind of all Buddhists throughout space and time. Then Vajra Guru Pema Siddhi Hum, Vajra Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. There is the 5 Buddha family. Vajra is the Vajra family. Guru is the jewel family. And Guru is the spiritual mentor. So you can write on your this 5 Buddha family the whole mantra. Om Ahum. Vajra is in the eastern direction, the Vajra family. Guru is the Ratna family, the jewel family. And Guru is derived from the word that means heavy. So the Guru or the spiritual mentor is heavy with qualities, with these jewels. So Guru is the jewel family. So Benza, Vajra, Guru, then Padma is lotus, Padma family. Siddhi is Amoga Siddhi, the karma family. Siddhi are attainments, achievements, accomplishments. And that's the karma family. Siddhi, and then Hum is the Buddha family in the middle. So Guru Rinpoche's mantra is actually the mantra of the 5 Buddha families.
It's inside. Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Om Ahum Vaja Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Om Ahum Vaja Guru Pema Siddhihum Om Ahom 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 Vaja Guru Pema Siddhihum. Questions about the chant? Yes.
At home, is it better to do the chant in Sanskrit or in Tibetan?
Not much variation, so either way.
One is original and the other is more practice.
Again, there are various opinions on like what is better.
What's yours?
Sorry?
What's your opinion?
Well, I mean, like this, the way we chant it is more like proper Sanskrit, so to say. Om Ahom Bajra, Guru Padma Siddhi Hom. Then the Tibetanized Sanskrit, it's still Sanskrit, it's just Tibetanized. Om Ahom Benza Guru Padma Siddhi Hom. So the various opinions of that tends to basically be, there are some Tibetan teachers who say, as close to Sanskrit as possible is good. Dalai Lama has, on several occasions kind of teased and kind of chided some of his monks who kind of make fun of what they're hearing in India. And then he says, Dalai Lama is like, you guys have mangled Sanskrit. We have mangled Sanskrit, and that's proper Sanskrit, You should not do that. So you have that. Then you also have the opinion of like, well, what's most potent is how you received it. So if you received it from, and so orally. So if you received it as Om Ahom Benza Guru Padma Siddhi Hom, then you should take that Om Ahom Benza Guru Padma Siddhi Hom, because that's a
good criteria.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's alive. Yeah, it's been passed down that way. Then there's another opinion, kind of a more scholarly, so to say, but from within the Tibetan. Jamgon Kongtrul said that these mantras, yes, some cases we could say that maybe we Tibetans have mangled the pronunciation. But in some cases, this was how we received them from way back. And that it could be that it was originally meant to be pronounced off. For whatever reasons. So that it was there was never a time that this particular mantra was in pure Sanskrit. But it's not just mangled, but it's more like regional dialects. So His Holiness Drigung Kyabgun, head of Drigung Kagyu, recently in West Virginia, where he was giving the 50 empowerments. So he knows that in the text that I have been kind of involved in, I have sort of insisted that we transcribe the Sanskrit according to the standard practice done now. And that my point is that then each teacher can go ahead and teach it the way they receive it. But in print, it's better to keep it in the standardized transcription system. So when he was talking about this, he kind of looked over at me and he kind of had this smile and he said, Jamgon Kongtrul says, that perhaps there are these mantras like right from the beginning is really deliberately mixing up standardized Sanskrit with colloquial. And so if that was the case, now you retro-fix it, you might have messed it up. Possible, who knows? And so then he said, when he read that, then he basically sent a list of mantras found in one particular practice text, the Hevajra Tantra, like sadhana. And he had that sent to the Sanskrit University in Varanasi. And whoever the Sanskrit professor that they sent to said, like, there's like 9 dialects in there, all mixed up together.
Oh no.
Yeah. And was that deliberate? Was that accidental? We have no way of knowing. So all of this, right? And finally, the best thing to do is to tell a story. So this story involves a great scholar in Tibetan Buddhism. By the way, in Tibetan Buddhism, or in Tibet, when they say this is a great scholar, they don't mean it as an insult. So Sakya Pandita, one of the 5 great masters of the Sakya tradition, is a consummate Sanskritist. And he studied the grammar, and Sakya Pandita, Tsongkhapa, and Longchenpa are called the 3 emanations of Manjushri in Tibet. So this story, whether it actually happened to Sakya Pandita or not, we don't know. But he's a good person to have this story happen to. So it said that his family, the Sakya family, have a transmission of an old Tantra. They belong to the new Tantra school, which is the Tantra that was brought to Tibet in the 11th century on. But his family was an old ancient family in Tibet, so that within their family, through blood lineage, they have a practice from the old Tantra. And old Tantra is basically Nima. And that practice is the practice of Vajrakilaya. So the Vajrakilaya standard mantra is Om Vajra Kilikilaya. And Sarva beginning blah blah blah. Right? Om Vajra Kilikilaya. And so he had within his old family tradition this practice. Then later he found manuscripts in Samye monastery that kind of further validates. And again, the point is that he's an expert in this particular practice. But it said that one time he met a hermit, an educated hermit practitioner, a yogi type. And he heard a lot of stories about how amazing this yogi was. So he went to visit this yogi. And so he had a good visit with the yogi. But at some point, he learned that this yogi also specialized in Vajrakilaya. And Sakya Pandita sort of felt an affinity with this person. Until this person started to chant his mantra. And so this person goes, Om Benja Chili Chilaya. Chili Chilaya instead of Kili Kilaya. Chili Chilaya, Chili Chilaya. And so Sakya Pandita is like, Chili Chilaya? What's Chili Chilaya? And he said to the guy who's like, no, it's wrong. It's Kili Kilaya. You pronounce it wrong. Don't do that. So Mr. Chili Chilaya picked up his kila, which is actually a peg, a dagger, and he picked up his ritual peg, which is not sharp or anything like that at all. You know, I mean, it's kind of pointed, and he goes, Om Benja Chili Chilaya, and he stabbed it into a rock. And it stabbed, it just went in. And he says, my Chili Chilaya can do this. What about your Chili Chilaya? Sakya Pandita said, you're right. Chili Chilaya.
as long as the intention is there, it's all right.
Seemingly.
Because I pronounce things wrong all the time.
He was like, my chilikilaya can do this, What about your kilikilaya? There's another story like that also about one of the Dalai Lamas that he, from his roof in the Potala, he could look down into the city, and every day he would go up there and kind of look out, And one day he saw some really mysterious kind of a mini flying saucer hovering above the head of this one person. And it's like a magical umbrella that was hovering above this person's head. So he sent his attendants to call this person up, and he asked this person, like, tell me about yourself, And then finally he said, well, what do you practice? He said, I practice this practice of the white umbrella, which is a form of tar called the white umbrella. Umbrella basically means like protection. Sitata patra. And so Dalai Lama is like, okay, so tell me how do you do that practice? And so he said the mantra, and again it was mispronounced. And Dalai Lama said, no, it should be pronounced this way. And the person said, oh, thank you so much. The next few days, Dalai Lama looked out. There was no umbrella hovering anywhere. And finally, he could tell that that person is still walking around there, but no more umbrella. So he told his attendants, go bring the guy back. So they brought the person back, and he said to the person, you go back to reciting how you recited it. Just forget about what I told you. And the umbrella turned up again. There's a third version of this story, actually, not from the Tibetan tradition, from the Christian tradition. There was a pope that heard about the reputation of these 3 hermits that lived on an island. And so then it said that he went to visit these 3 hermits. And so he spent an afternoon with them, talking about, whatever popes talk to hermits about. And then, the Pope left, in his ship. After they have sailed off a little, from a distance, something seems to be moving. So something seems to be moving. And they could see. And as this thing moving came closer to closer, it was those 3 guys, like running real quick, and came up to the ship. And the 3 guys go, you were fixing our prayer? How was it supposed to be said again? And the Pope was like, no, it's okay, just go back. I think it's okay, you got it already. Let's see. We have some announcements quickly. Contemplating Reality, the book club, is about to start in October. So there's a flyer out there. It will meet every Thursday at lunchtime from 12 to 1. Gary is one of the co-facilitators of that book. It's a really nice book, and Gary wants me to remind you, we have them available at our bookstore for sale as well. So do consider, and it's the book club format is a nice format to kind of, especially if you feel like you're new to it, and there isn't like any teacher there making any pronouncements, and so it's more organic, I think. Then I mentioned the POA will start in November. The flyer is not up there yet, I think, but soon it will be up. And then we have
Kimbo Soltrum Tenzin is coming to visit the weekend of October 24th and 25th. The 24th will be all day from 10 to 5 with a lunch break, 12 to 2. And it looks like he'll be giving a Vajrasattva empowerment in the morning with instructions and teaching in the afternoon. And then on Sunday, it will be a half-day program.
Full day program.
Sunday?
Yes.
It will be a full day.
As in, half the day will be here, and the other half will be at a different location, outdoors, weather permitting.
Who was that?
Khenpo Sutram Tenzin is one of the Khenpos that come here from time to time. His main center is up in Frederick, Maryland. So a lot of people have, for various reasons, kind of started Vajrasattva practice or have ongoing Vajrasattva practice. So as you all know, in Vajrayana, there's emphasis on receiving empowerments. And so Vajrasattva empowerment will be a good one. It's purification, cleansing all this stuff. So the half-day program on Sunday is also a cleansing, purificatory, but that one is not so much you doing it. Of course, the group will chant, but it's a very common ritual done in Tibetan societies that basically involves the pouring of water. We've done it before when one of the Drupans, senior Drupans, came a year ago. It's a big kind of tub, and water is poured. It's called Vajravidarana. Particularly, those things are done when through divination and things, it's determined that there are hanger-ons that have somehow attached themselves to you. Then something more dramatic needs to be done. So certain ritual technologies are employed. That will be on Sunday. All of our practice is basically a practice of removing obscurations. So the Sunday is more of an external thing, which Tibetans have found to be extremely beneficial. I think sometimes we over-psychologize Buddhism here. We forget that it's a lived experience. It's also a physical experience. I've mentioned this in other contexts that it's great, all the research that is done now about neuroscience and meditation. But there's one potential kind of danger there, if we don't call attention to it, is that we might unintentionally, unknowingly, think that meditation takes place in the brain. And that it's all, quote unquote, up in the head. It's not. At least from a Buddhist perspective, meditation takes place in the whole body mind, not just the brain. So it's as much a somatic experience as it is psychological. And it's not just located in the brain. And some of us, our problems in a way, is based on being too much stuck up here. And if we think then the solution is to be found up here, it might get even more jammed up. So, don't get me wrong, those research and all that should continue to, but within the context of this practice, we should understand that there's a somatic experience of meditation, of the path that we often forget. And it's along those lines, I say, ideally, if Sunday, the second part, could take place outside, that would be good. There's not enough kind of physical going-ons. I mean, the subject kind of lends itself that way. So here we are, the last 2.5 hours. Been talking and thinking, But in the more traditional context, it's a very embodied practice. People do lots and lots of prostrations. People do lots and lots of circumambulation. People do lots and lots of offering of lamps, offerings of water. They're not just up in the head, which is where most of us are stuck. And then we kind of look at these traditional practices as Tibetan culture or superstitious. But these are skillful methods to get out of the head, doing. So that kind of balance, I think, is important. In Tibetan monasteries, when people chant, they like loud. And that exercises, your lungs, your body. Yeah? And just it's energizing chants. Here we tend to think of chants as there is a role for that. There is a place for that. Not putting that down, but also to point out, they're energizing practices that we have not really relied on or emphasized. We should. There's a whole range of these practices.
Can you give us a good Om and a good Tibetan Om? Or a good Tibetan mantra?
Oh, Om Ahom Vajra Pema Siddhim Hum, that we just chanted.
But how loud do you usually chant it?
Sorry?
How loud do you usually chant it when you were...
As long as you want.
I mean, volume-wise.
Oh. They say principally don't annoy your neighbors.
Ah!
Yeah. So dedication on page 147.
With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare for all sentient beings who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, may I train to hold them as supremely precious. Whenever I associate with others, may I train to think of myself as the lowest among all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, may I train to search into my mind, and as soon as an afflictive emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. May I train to cherish beings of bad nature and those oppressed by strong sins and suffering, as if I had found a precious treasure very difficult to find. When others, out of jealousy, treat me badly with abuse, slander, and so on, may I train to take on all loss and offer victory to them. When one whom I have benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, may I train to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, may I train to offer to everyone, without exception, all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. May I train to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly conceptions, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment.
Thank you for listening to the Urban Dharma NC podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we hope you'll consider supporting our mission to foster a deeper understanding of the teachings of the Buddha, to build meaningful community, and to integrate contemplative teachings into everyday life. We invite you to make a donation online at udharmanc.com or make a purchase at our store, tibetanspirit.com. Thank you. May all beings benefit.